Look at you, filthy homeless garbage, thinking you belong among decent people. The two cops sneer as they close in on Cal Monroe, a weary black man standing beside his battered cart. To them, he's nothing but clutter, unwashed, unwanted, and unworthy of breath. One shoves him while the other locks the cuffs, their laughter echoing like victory. The crowd averts its eyes, pretending not to see. A few yards away, a man in a tailored suit watches silently. A wealthy black CEO, calm but furious inside. The cuffs tighten, the mockery spreads, and by tomorrow, those same cops will be ruined. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The autumn breeze carried fallen leaves across Piedmont Park as the afternoon sun painted Atlanta's skyline in warm amber hues. Cal Monroe's weathered hands gripped the rusty handle of his shopping cart, its wheels squeaking a familiar rhythm as he moved along the park's winding path. His deep voice, softened by age and hardship, hummed Amazing Grace, the same hymn his mama used to sing on Sunday mornings. "Lord knows I've seen better days," Cal muttered to himself, easing his tired body onto a park bench. From his pocket, he pulled out a half-eaten sandwich, breaking off small pieces for the gathering pigeons. Their gentle cooing reminded him of peaceful moments from his past, before life had turned so harsh. The crunch of heavy boots on gravel made Cal's shoulders tense. He didn't need to look up to know what was coming. He'd learned to sense trouble long ago. Two Atlanta PD officers approached, their shadows stretching across the ground like dark omens. "Well, what do we have here?" Officer Dalton Briggs's voice dripped with mock sweetness. His partner, Mark Denham, hung back, shifting uncomfortably from foot to foot. "Looks like we got ourselves a vagrant disturbing the peace." Cal kept his eyes down, speaking softly. "Just resting my legs, officer. Been walking all day." His fingers trembled slightly as he continued feeding the birds, trying to maintain some dignity. "Resting? This ain't a homeless shelter." Briggs circled the shopping cart like a predator. "This here's a public park for decent folks." His boot connected with the cart's wheel, sending it crashing onto its side. Cal's few possessions scattered across the ground. Some clothes, a worn Bible, a plastic water bottle, and an old photo in a cracked frame. "Please," Cal said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "Those are all I got." He slowly stood, hands visible, movements careful. A few park visitors slowed their pace, watching from a safe distance. Some pulled out phones, but none stepped forward to help. As Cal bent to retrieve his Bible, Briggs's hand clamped down on his arm. "Oh, no, you don't. That looks like resisting to me." His fingers dug into Cal's flesh. "Wouldn't want you reaching for a weapon." "Please, officer. I ain't done nothing." Cal's voice cracked, decades of dignity crumbling under cruel hands. "Just let me get my things." Briggs moved with practiced violence, sweeping Cal's legs while pushing forward. Cal hit the ground hard, concrete scraping his hands. Denham hesitated for a moment before moving to assist his partner, holding Cal's legs while Briggs pressed his knee into the older man's back. The rough surface bit into Cal's cheek as Briggs ground his face against the sidewalk. Blood began to seep from the abraded skin, trickling down to stain his collar. The cold metal of handcuffs bit into his wrists, ratcheting too tight. "Should have stayed invisible, boy," Briggs whispered, his breath hot against Cal's ear. The slur that followed was quiet enough that only Cal could hear it, but its poison burned deep. The officer's knee pressed harder, making Cal gasp for air. Through pain-blurred vision, Cal noticed expensive leather shoes stepping into view. His eyes traveled up pressed suit pants to the figure of a well-dressed black man standing perfectly still about 20 yards away. Even through his distress, Cal couldn't help but notice how the man's presence seemed to command attention. His stance straight-backed and powerful, his arms folded across his chest. The man's face remained carefully neutral, a mask of professional detachment. But his eyes told a different story. They burned with an intensity that seemed to take in every detail of the scene. The scattered belongings, the blood on the concrete, the growing crowd of uncomfortable onlookers, the smirk on Briggs's face. The stranger's fingers tightened slightly on his crossed arms, the only visible sign of his internal reaction. His expensive watch caught the sunlight as he stood motionless, watching Cal's humiliation with those fierce, calculating eyes. Cal felt himself being roughly pulled to his feet, Briggs's hands unnecessarily rough. The movement sent waves of pain through his shoulders, but he bit back any sound of distress. His mama had always told him to hold on to his dignity, no matter what. "Let's go, old-timer," Briggs sneered, shoving Cal toward the waiting patrol car. "Maybe a night in lockup will teach you about proper park behavior." As they marched him away, Cal caught one last glimpse of his fallen Bible, its pages fluttering in the breeze. The well-dressed stranger hadn't moved, his presence like a statue of judgment overlooking the scene. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the park, turning the scattered remains of Cal's life into dark silhouettes on the ground. The patrol car's door slammed shut with a finality that echoed across the park. Through the window, Cal watched his shopping cart lying on its side, the wheels still spinning slowly in the autumn air. The pigeons had returned to pecking at the forgotten breadcrumbs, indifferent to the human drama that had just unfolded. The patrol car's back door stood open like a hungry mouth as the officers dragged Cal toward it. His feet scraped against the pavement, leaving dark marks from his worn shoes. Blood from his scraped face dripped onto his collar, spreading slowly through the thin fabric of his shirt. "Watch your head," Briggs sneered, making no effort to prevent Cal from bumping it against the car frame. The cruel irony of the standard police warning twisted into another form of mockery. A commanding voice cut through the tension. "Officers, what's the charge?" Darius Langston stepped forward, his movement smooth and deliberate. His tailored suit and straight-backed posture contrasted sharply with the chaos of the scene. His face remained carefully controlled, but authority rang in every word. Briggs's head snapped around, his expression darkening at the interruption. "Back off, sir. This isn't your business." His hand tightened on Cal's arm, making the older man wince. "Everything that happens in this city is my business," Darius replied, his voice level but carrying an unmistakable weight. He stood perfectly still, hands clasped behind his back, radiating the quiet confidence of someone used to being heard. A few feet away, Myra Jenkins held her phone steady, recording every moment. Her silver-streaked hair was pulled back in a neat bun, her teacher's instinct for documenting wrongdoing evident in her unwavering grip. "Oh, this is going viral," she muttered, just loud enough to be heard. Her fingers swiped across the screen, making sure to capture Briggs's badge number, 6847. Darius's eyes flickered to Denham, noting his badge as well, 4218. The younger officer shifted uncomfortably under that penetrating gaze, his Adam's apple bobbing as he swallowed hard. For a moment, their eyes met, and Denham looked away first, guilt written clearly across his features. "I said back off," Briggs barked, but a note of uncertainty had crept into his voice. Something about the well-dressed stranger's demeanor suggested power, the kind that couldn't be countered with a badge and handcuffs. Cal sat hunched in the back seat now, his dignity intact despite his circumstances. His eyes met Darius's through the window, and something passed between them. A moment of recognition, perhaps, or a shared understanding of injustice. The crowd that had gathered began to disperse, their momentary outrage fading as quickly as it had flared. They drifted away like leaves in the autumn wind, returning to their comfortable lives, leaving behind the scene of casual cruelty. The patrol car's engine rumbled to life. Briggs slammed his door with unnecessary force, a final act of defiance against the watching stranger. The vehicle pulled away from the curb, carrying Cal into the gathering dusk. Darius waited until the police car disappeared around the corner before approaching Myra. She was still trembling slightly, her phone clutched tight in her hand. Up close, her eyes showed a mixture of anger and determination. "Ma'am," Darius said softly, "that was brave of you to record." His voice carried genuine respect. "Would you be willing to share that footage with me?" Myra nodded, her teacher's instinct for recognizing allies kicking in. "They shouldn't be allowed to get away with this," she said, her voice tight with emotion. "I've seen too much of this happening in our city." Her fingers moved quickly across her phone's screen, sending the video to the email address Darius provided. The quiet beep of confirmation seemed oddly loud in the now empty park. Darius reached into his suit jacket and withdrew a business card. The elegant black and silver design caught the fading light as he handed it to her. Myra's eyes widened as she read the text. "Langston Industries," followed by his name and title. "Thank you," he said simply, but the words carried weight. "You've done something important today." Myra clutched the card, understanding dawning in her expression. "You're that Langston? The CEO?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Those officers have no idea who they just performed for, do they?" A ghost of a smile touched Darius's lips, but it didn't reach his eyes. "No, they don't." He glanced at the scattered belongings still littering the ground. Cal's overturned cart, his torn Bible, the spilled contents of his life. "But they will." The sun had nearly set now, painting the Atlanta skyline in deep purples and blues. The air grew cooler as night approached, rustling through the trees and stirring the pages of Cal's abandoned Bible. Darius sat in his parked Tesla, the interior lights dimmed to near darkness. The video played on his phone screen, casting a harsh glow across his features. He watched it again and again. The casual cruelty, the whispered slur, the blood on the concrete, Briggs's self-satisfied smirk. Each detail burned itself into his memory. His finger paused the footage on a frame showing Cal's face pressed against the sidewalk. The parking lot around his car had emptied, leaving him alone with the damning evidence. In the quiet darkness, his whispered words carried the weight of a vow. "Tomorrow, I'll make sure they regret this." Morning light crept across Atlanta's skyline, but the city was already buzzing. On thousands of phones, tablets, and computers, the same video played on repeat. A homeless black man forced face down on the sidewalk, blood seeping onto concrete, while two officers stood over him like conquering warriors. The footage, shaky but clear, spread like wildfire across social media platforms. Atlanta police brutality and justice for the homeless trended nationwide. Each share brought fresh outrage, new comments demanding accountability. Inside the CNN Center, reporters huddled around monitors displaying the viral clip. The morning news anchor, Sandra Chen, leaned forward in her chair as the video played behind her. "The incident occurred yesterday afternoon in Piedmont Park," she reported, her voice professionally controlled but tinged with disgust. "Sources confirm the officers involved are Dalton Briggs and Mark Denham of the Atlanta Police Department." The footage paused, zooming in on a figure in the background, a well-dressed black man watching with crossed arms. The image enhanced, sharpening his features. "And here's where this story takes an unexpected turn," Sandra continued. "Several social media users have identified this bystander as Darius Langston, CEO of Langston Industries." The screen split to show Darius's corporate headshot beside the frozen frame. The resemblance was unmistakable. In offices and homes across Atlanta, people gathered around screens. At a local diner, waitresses and customers clustered near the mounted TV, coffee cups forgotten in their hands. "That's him, all right," a gray-haired regular muttered. "Man's worth billions and he just stood there watching?" "Watching and recording," the waitress corrected, pointing to her phone where she'd pulled up Darius's latest tweet. "Look." The tweet was simple, but explosive. "I witnessed injustice yesterday. I intend to make it right." The words rippled through news cycles, each network dissecting their meaning. On Fox News, pundits questioned his motives. On MSNBC, analysts praised his stance. Local Atlanta stations ran special segments on Langston Industries' history of community involvement. "This is unprecedented," a political commentator declared on ABC. One of Atlanta's most powerful business leaders directly challenging police conduct. The implications could be enormous. Inside the city jail, Cal Monroe sat on a hard metal bench, his body aching from the concrete floor he'd slept on. The holding cell smelled of bleach and despair. His face throbbed where it had been pressed into the sidewalk, dried blood still crusting his cheek. A young officer, couldn't be more than 25, approached with a paper cup of water. His name tag read Rodriguez. He slid the cup through the bars, avoiding eye contact. "Here you go, sir," he said quietly, the "sir" surprising Cal. Cal took the cup, the water lukewarm and tasting of metal. "Thank you, son," he said, his voice rough from thirst. He sipped slowly, saving half for later. Experience had taught him that kindness in these places was rare and rationed. Leaning back against the cell wall, Cal closed his eyes. "Always the same old story," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. "Different badges, same ending." Officer Rodriguez lingered, shifting his weight from foot to foot. "The video's all over the internet," he said softly. "People are pretty angry about what happened." Cal's laugh was dry and bitter. "People get angry all the time, young blood. Anger fades. System stays the same." He touched his swollen cheek gently. "Tomorrow there'll be another video, another victim, another round of thoughts and prayers." In the hallway, a door slammed. Rodriguez straightened, hurrying away as heavy footsteps approached. Cal recognized Briggs's walk before he saw him, the confident stride of a man who'd never faced consequences. Across town, in the penthouse office of Langston Industries, Darius stood before a wall of monitors. Each screen showed different news coverage of the incident. His phone hadn't stopped buzzing since dawn. Calls from board members, journalists, politicians seeking comment. His assistant, Marcus, entered with a tablet. "Sir, they're running his mugshot now." Darius turned to the main screen where a local news station displayed Cal's booking photo. The image showed Cal's face, bruised but dignified, eyes staring directly into the camera. Something about those eyes caught Darius's attention. He stepped closer, memories stirring. The weathered face was different, marked by years of hardship. But those eyes, he knew those eyes. The coffee cup in his hand slipped, hitting the carpet with a soft thud. Marcus rushed forward with napkins, but Darius barely noticed the spreading stain. "Calvin? Monroe?" The name left his lips in a whisper of disbelief. His hand reached out, touching the screen where Cal's image was displayed. The years fell away, and suddenly he was 16 again, sitting on a porch in Collier Heights, sharing dreams with his best friend's older brother. Marcus looked up from cleaning the spill. "Sir? Do you know him?" Darius didn't answer immediately. His eyes remained fixed on the mugshot, taking in every detail of the face that had once been so familiar. The proud set of the jaw, even in defeat. The slight tilt of the head that spoke of unbroken spirit. The morning sun streamed through the office windows, casting long shadows across the floor. Outside, Atlanta continued its morning rush, unaware that two lives separated by decades of circumstance were about to intersect again. Darius's Tesla glided silently through the streets of Collier Heights. The afternoon sun cast harsh shadows across boarded-up windows and crumbling porches. Empty lots where proud homes once stood were now overgrown with kudzu. Every corner held a memory, each one sharper than the last. He slowed at Martin Luther King Jr. Drive, where the old corner store used to be. Now it was just another abandoned building with faded advertisements peeling off its brick walls. His hands tightened on the steering wheel as memories flooded back. Summer, 1992. He was 12, skinny and scared, clutching his backpack as 3 older boys cornered him behind that same store. The tallest one had already landed 2 punches when Cal appeared like an avenging angel, 16 and fearless. "You touch him again," Cal had said, voice steady and dangerous, "and we're gonna have problems that don't end today." The bullies scattered. Cal helped Darius up, checked his bloody nose, and bought him a grape soda. "Listen up, little man," he'd said, sitting on the curb. "World's gonna try to make you small. Don't let it. You stand tall even when you're scared." Darius pulled over, parking beside what used to be Mrs. Johnson's house. The porch where they'd spent countless evenings was now half-collapsed. He could still hear Cal's voice mixing with the crickets and distant trains, teaching him how to defend himself. "Keep your thumb outside your fist," Cal had instructed, demonstrating the proper form. "Plant your feet like roots. Nobody can push you down if you're grounded." Those lessons went beyond fighting. Cal would help Darius with homework, explaining math problems with infinite patience. "You're smart as hell, little brother," he'd say. "Don't let anyone tell you different." Everything changed after Sarah died. Cal's sister, barely 23, killed by a drunk driver who walked away with community service. Darius remembered the funeral, watching Cal's light dim. The laughter disappeared. The wisdom turned to silence. Then came the arrest. A routine traffic stop planted evidence, a public defender who slept through the trial. Cal lost his job at the steel factory, his apartment, his future. Darius was away at MIT on scholarship when it happened, drowning in guilt for not being there. The Tesla's navigation system beeped, indicating he'd arrived at his next destination. The Mercy House shelter stood between a dollar store and a check-cashing place, its brick facade clean but worn. A hand-painted sign promised hope for all God's children. Inside, the air smelled of bleach and donated food. A few men dozed in plastic chairs while a volunteer sorted through boxes of clothing. Behind the front desk, Sister Margaret's gray hair was tied back in a severe bun, her eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Calvin Monroe?" She adjusted her glasses, studying Darius. "Yes, I know Cal. Good man. Always helps with the cleanup. Leads prayer circle when Brother Thomas is out." She pulled out a thick ledger, running her finger down columns of dates. "He stays when the weather's bad, but mostly prefers the streets. Says the shelters remind him too much of prison." Darius leaned forward. "Has he mentioned problems with the police?" Sister Margaret's face darkened. "Those two, Briggs and Denham, they're like hunting dogs with a scent. Keep targeting the same people, especially Cal. Last month, they threw out his blankets, said he was storing property illegally." She made air quotes, disgust clear in her voice. "How long has this been going on?" "Years." She closed the ledger with a snap. "They work the tourist areas, pushing out anyone who might disturb the nice folks coming to spend money. Cal's got citations for everything: loitering, panhandling, disturbing the peace. All garbage charges that disappear in court. But the harassment continues." Darius took notes on his phone, jaw clenching. "Has anyone filed complaints?" "Honey, we've filled enough forms to wallpaper the Vatican. Nothing changes." She paused, studying him. "You're that CEO they're talking about on the news, aren't you? The one who saw what happened?" He nodded. Then maybe you can do what we couldn't. She reached under the desk and pulled out a manila folder. Here's copies of every incident report we've filed. Names, dates, badge numbers, 5 years' worth of documented abuse. Darius accepted the folder, its weight feeling like both a burden and a weapon. Thank you, Sister Margaret. Just make it count, she said softly. Back in his car, Darius drove to one final stop. The First Baptist Church stood proud, despite its peeling paint, its steps worn smooth by generations of faithful feet. This was where Cal's family had worshipped, where Sarah's funeral was held, where Cal had once dreamed of becoming a deacon like his father. Darius climbed the steps slowly, memories echoing with each footfall. Cal teaching him to tie a tie before his first school dance. Cal breaking up fights with words instead of fists, always trying to help people find better ways. Cal quoting scripture even while teaching him to box. Proverbs 31:8. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Standing before the heavy wooden doors, Darius touched the warm brass handle. The same handle Cal had gripped countless times, leading his baby sister to Sunday school, helping their mother up the steps when arthritis made walking hard. I owe him everything, Darius whispered to the quiet church. The words felt inadequate against the weight of memory and debt, against the years of silence and separation. The next morning found Darius in City Hall, his polished Oxford shoes clicking against marble floors that had seen decades of power plays and broken promises. The mayor's office suite occupied the entire east wing, its waiting room furnished in leather and dark wood that reeked of old money and older prejudices. Linda Shaw's assistant, a young woman with carefully neutral expressions, led him into the conference room. Chief Rourke was already there, his bulk settled into an oversized chair like a well-fed predator. Mayor Shaw sat at the head of the table, her cream-colored blazer and pearls a study in calculated approachability. Mr. Langston, Shaw gestured to an empty chair, we appreciate you bringing your concerns directly to us. Darius remained standing, hands clasped behind his back. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Atlanta's skyline stretched like a metal and glass forest. His own company's tower was visible in the distance, its logo catching the morning sun. I'm not here for appreciation, he said quietly. I'm here for action. Officers Briggs and Denham need to be suspended pending investigation. Rourke's chair creaked as he leaned forward. Now, Mr. Langston, let's not be hasty. My officers were responding to multiple complaints about aggressive panhandling. I was there, Darius cut in. Calvin Monroe was feeding pigeons. Your officers assaulted him without provocation. Mayor Shaw's perfectly manicured fingers drummed once on the mahogany table. We understand this situation has sparked emotional responses. Rest assured, we'll handle this internally through proper channels. Proper channels? Darius's laugh held no humor. Like you handled the Williams case? The Rodriguez incident? How many internal investigations end up buried in bureaucratic limbo? Chief Rourke's face reddened. Our officers acted within established protocols. If Mr. Monroe had simply complied with what? Darius pulled out his phone. This video shows exactly what happened. He played Myra's footage. The sounds filled the room. Cal's quiet pleas, Briggs's sneering voice, the thud of body against concrete. Shaw's face remained carefully blank, but her knuckles whitened around her pen. Rourke waited for the video to end, then laughed. A dry, dismissive sound. Without body cam corroboration, that video's inadmissible. Could be edited, manipulated. And even if it wasn't, it doesn't show the full context. The context? Darius's voice dropped dangerously low. The context is your officers targeting homeless black men to clear the tourist districts. I have 5 years of documented complaints. Complaints? Rourke waved his hand. from unreliable sources, addicts, vagrants, people with records, people like Cal Monroe, who lost everything because your department planted evidence. Mayor Shaw straightened. Mr. Langston, that's a serious accusation, one that could be considered defamatory. Are you threatening me? Not at all. Her smile was glacier cold. Simply pointing out that wealthy businessmen aren't immune to legal consequences, especially when they publicly malign our police force. Darius placed both palms on the table, leaning forward. I'm going to make this very simple. Either you suspend those officers and launch a real investigation, or I'll file a civil rights lawsuit that will make national headlines for months. You do that, Rourke's voice dripped condescension, and we'll be forced to investigate every aspect of your involvement. Your relationship with Monroe, your company's hiring practices, your personal life. Amazing what determined investigators can uncover. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Darius straightened slowly, adjusting his tie. You know what amazes me? How quickly you showed your true colors. Didn't even try to pretend this was about justice. Justice? Shaw's laugh was brittle. This is Atlanta politics, Mr. Langston. The sooner you understand that, the better for everyone. Everyone who looks like you mean. The mayor flinched. Rourke's face darkened. That's enough. We're done here. Yes, Darius moved toward the door. We certainly are. He paused in the doorway, looking back at them. My mother used to say, silence in the face of evil is evil itself. I won't be silent, and I won't stop until those officers face consequences. The door closed behind him with a soft click that echoed like a gunshot. Hours later, in the precinct's basement, Chief Rourke found Officer Briggs pacing between filing cabinets. The younger man's usually smug face showed traces of worry. Sir, about the body cam footage. Delete your logs, Rourke cut him off. All of them. I'll handle the rest. But internal affairs, we'll find nothing but technical malfunctions. Rourke's smile was ugly. Amazing how unreliable these cameras can be. In the department's IT office, a tech named Morrison typed commands into a terminal, his face illuminated by multiple screens. Chief Rourke's instructions had been clear. Any footage from Briggs or Denham's cameras during the incident needed to disappear. Click by click, byte by byte, the evidence vanished into digital darkness. The truth of what happened to Cal Monroe in Piedmont Park became just another ghost in the machine. Another story the system would deny. The tech sat back, rubbing his eyes. On his screen, a simple message blinked. Files deleted successfully. Morning light streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Langston Industries' main conference room, casting long shadows across the polished mahogany table. Camera crews jostled for position, their equipment creating a forest of tripods and microphones. The air hummed with tension and whispered speculation. Darius stood at the podium, his charcoal suit immaculate, his presence commanding. The company logo behind him seemed to pulse with each camera flash. He gripped the sides of the podium, scanning the packed room of reporters, activists, and corporate representatives. Thank you all for coming this morning, he began, his voice steady and measured. Yesterday, I witnessed something that has haunted me. Not because it was shocking, but because it was routine. What happened to Calvin Monroe happens every day in our city, to people whose names we never learn, whose stories never make the headlines. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. This is not about one homeless man. This is about every black man dehumanized under the guise of law. Every person deemed disposable by those sworn to protect them. Every silent witness who looks away because speaking up feels too costly. The room erupted with questions. Reporters shouted over each other, hands shooting up like startled birds. Mr. Langston, are you accusing the Atlanta Police Department of systemic racism? Will Langston Industries be taking legal action? Do you have any response to Chief Rourke's statement about proper procedures being followed? Darius raised a hand, silencing the chaos. Let me be clear. What I saw in Piedmont Park wasn't a procedure. It was an assault. Officer Briggs and Officer Denham didn't serve or protect. They brutalized an unarmed man whose only crime was existing while poor and black in a gentrified space. In the front row, Janet Reese shifted uncomfortably. Her designer suit and perfectly styled hair couldn't hide the worry lines creasing her forehead. She watched the ticker symbols scrolling across her phone screen, each showing red arrows pointing downward. The mayor's office claims this incident is being investigated internally, Darius continued. But we've seen how internal investigations work. They disappear into bureaucratic black holes. Evidence vanishes. Witnesses change their stories. And nothing changes. A reporter from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution stood up. Mr. Langston, your company's stock has dropped 12 points since markets opened. Several major shareholders have expressed concern about mixing business with political activism. How do you respond? Darius smiled, but his eyes remained hard. I built this empire from nothing, from a one-room apartment in Collier Heights, watching my mother work 3 jobs, from scholarship applications filled out by candlelight because the electricity got cut off. I'm not afraid of losing it for the truth. Janet's heel tapped nervously against the floor. She could see board members in the back of the room exchanging glances, their disapproval practically radiating across the space. We demand immediate action. Darius's voice rose with controlled passion. The suspension of Officers Briggs and Denham. An independent investigation into the pattern of harassment against homeless citizens. And a complete audit of all body cam footage from the past 6 months. More questions exploded through the room. Janet stood up, trying to catch Darius's eye, but he ignored her. To the city officials watching this, you can threaten me. You can try to bury the truth, but you cannot stop what's coming. Because this isn't just about Calvin Monroe anymore. This is about every person who's ever been told to stay quiet, stay small, stay invisible. The cameras clicked frantically. Social media feeds exploded with real-time quotes and video clips. Hashtags started trending. Justice for Calvin. Langston speaks. Atlanta cops exposed. As Darius stepped away from the podium, Janet intercepted him before he could reach his office. You're wading into political waters, she hissed, following him down the corridor. The board is furious. Thompson Industries is threatening to pull their contracts. You're putting everything at risk. Darius stopped, turning to face her. You mean I'm putting your comfort at risk? Your carefully constructed position between 2 worlds. Janet flinched. That's not fair. I'm trying to protect what you built. No, he said softly. You're trying to protect the system that lets you pretend you're not part of the problem. He left her standing there, her expensive heels rooted to the marble floor. The day stretched into evening. Darius sat in his office, watching the city lights flicker to life below. His phone hadn't stopped buzzing with messages. Board members demanding emergency meetings, shareholders threatening to sell, reporters begging for exclusive interviews. His assistant brought in the evening papers. The headlines screamed, Langston Industries CEO declares war on police. Stock plummets as tech giant turns activist. Shareholders question leadership after controversial stance. As night settled over Atlanta, Darius's phone buzzed one final time. An unknown number. The message was simple. They're watching you. Be careful. He placed the phone face down on his desk, staring out at the city he thought he knew. Somewhere out there, Cal was in a cell. Somewhere, Briggs and Denham were probably laughing, thinking they were untouchable. Somewhere, The truth was being buried one deleted file at a time. The city sparkled below, beautiful and corrupt, a maze of power and privilege where justice got lost in the shadows between skyscrapers. But Darius had navigated mazes before. He'd built his empire by learning every back alley and hidden door. Now, he would use that knowledge to tear down the walls of silence, brick by brick. The downtown office building looked abandoned, its brick facade weathered, and windows clouded with city grime. Perfect cover for a man who preferred to stay invisible. Darius stepped through the creaking door, the smell of old coffee and cigarettes hitting him immediately. Ray Coleman's office occupied the third floor, a cluttered space with filing cabinets lining every wall. The man himself sat behind a desk that had seen better decades, his dark skin weathered by years of late nights and darker truths. "Darius Langston," Ray said, not standing. "Figured you'd show up eventually. Your reputation precedes you, Mr. Coleman." Darius settled into a chair that protested under his weight. Former detective, forced out after exposing corruption in the drug unit. Now you specialize in cases the department wants buried. Ray's laugh was dry as autumn leaves. "And you're the billionaire causing headaches at City Hall. What can a humble PI do for Atlanta's most controversial CEO?" Darius placed a thick envelope on the desk. "I need everything on Officers Briggs and Denham. Every complaint, every incident report, every witness statement that disappeared into the void." "That's dangerous territory." Ray leaned forward, eyes sharp. "Those files have a way of getting people hurt. I'm already in the crosshairs. Might as well make it count." Ray opened the envelope, whistled at the retainer check inside. "For this kind of money, I'll dig up their kindergarten records." Over the next few days, Ray's investigation revealed an ugly pattern. Briggs and Denham's brutality complaints stretched back years, mostly against homeless black men, always dismissed by internal affairs. The same detective signed off on each dismissal. Lieutenant Marcus Shaw, the mayor's brother-in-law. In Ray's office, papers covered every surface. Photos, reports, transcripts, a paper trail of systematic cruelty. "Look at this pattern." Ray pointed to a map dotted with red pins. "They target specific areas, tourist zones, gentrified neighborhoods, places where wealthy white residents don't want to see homeless people." Darius studied the evidence, jaw tight. How many victims? At least 30 documented cases. Probably hundreds more who never reported. Ray pulled out a thick file. "But here's the kicker. Remember that drug bust that ruined Cal's life? Guess who made the arrest?" "Briggs," Darius breathed. Before he even had his detective shield. The evidence was sketchy. The witness statements contradicted each other, but Shaw pushed it through anyway. Darius's phone buzzed. A text from his security team. Cal had been released on bail, transferred to a safe house in Buckhead. "Keep digging," Darius told Ray. "I want everything. Every dark corner, every covered track." The safe house sat back from the street, hidden behind old oak trees. Inside, Cal Monroe sat at a kitchen table, wearing clean clothes that still had store creases. His face showed fading bruises, but his eyes held the same quiet dignity Darius remembered from childhood. They stared at each other across decades of silence. "You look different," Cal said finally. "Suit probably costs more than I made in a year at the factory." "You look the same," Darius replied. "Still got Mom's Bible verses written in your eyes." Cal's laugh was rough with emotion. "Why'd you care now? All these years, all those nights under bridges, in shelters, why now?" Darius sat down heavily. "Because I didn't back then. I got out, got successful, told myself I'd come back and fix things. But I kept waiting for the right time, the right way. Meanwhile, you were out there living it every day." "Living it?" Cal's voice cracked. "I was dying out there, piece by piece. Watching everything I built crumble because some cop decided I fit a profile. Lost my job, my apartment, my family, everything I was. I know, and I can't fix that. But I can make sure they never do it to anyone else. Cal studied him. You really think you can take down the whole system? They'll destroy you first. Let them try. Darius pulled out Ray's files. We've got evidence. Pattern of abuse, falsified reports, covered-up complaints. The same officers, the same supervisor, the same targets. It's all here. Evidence disappears, Cal said quietly. Truth gets buried. You know how it works. Not this time. Darius spread the documents across the table. This time we have resources, influence, media attention. This time we make them face what they've done. Cal touched a photo of himself from his factory days, clean-shaven, uniform pressed, standing proud outside the steel mill. I used to believe in justice. Used to think if you worked hard, played by the rules, it would be enough. It should have been enough. Darius's voice was thick with regret. But now we make them change the rules. They sat in silence, two boys from Collier Heights who'd taken very different paths to this moment. Through the window, Atlanta's skyline glittered like false promises. I'm scared for you, Cal admitted. These people, they don't play fair. They'll come at you with everything they've got. Good. Darius's smile was fierce. Let them come. We take them all down. Briggs, Denham, Shaw, every last one who thought they were untouchable. Cal reached across the table, gripped Darius's hand, the same handshake they'd shared as kids making playground pacts. Together this time? Together, Darius promised. No one gets left behind again. Outside, the oaks whispered secrets to the Georgia wind. Inside, two men began planning a revolution, armed with truth and decades of denied justice. Janet Reese sat in her corner office at Langston Industries, staring at her vibrating phone. The mayor's private number flashed on the screen. Her manicured nail hovered over the answer button for 3 heartbeats before she swept it right. Janet Reese speaking. Her voice was smooth as polished marble. Ms. Reese. Mayor Shaw's tone dripped with false warmth. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important. Through the glass walls of her office, Janet watched employees hurrying past, their faces tight with the tension that had gripped the company since Darius's crusade began. Not at all, Mayor Shaw. What can I do for you? Let's be direct. Your client is causing considerable disruption, the kind that could damage a lot of careers, including yours. Janet's fingers tightened around her pen. Mr. Langston is pursuing what he believes is justice. Justice? The mayor's laugh was sharp. He's pursuing a vendetta that could tear this city apart. And I wonder, does he know about your husband's position in the police union? The pen snapped in Janet's grip, ink staining her fingers. Deputy Commissioner Marcus Reese, her husband of 15 years, the man whose connection to the department had opened so many doors. That's hardly relevant to my work as corporate counsel, Janet said carefully. Everything's relevant now. Your husband signed off on half those disciplinary reports Langston's investigating. If this explodes, Marcus goes down. Your comfortable life goes with him. Janet closed her eyes, remembering the previous night's dinner. Marcus pacing their kitchen, ranting about that uppity CEO who needed to learn his place. What exactly are you suggesting? Be our eyes and ears. Feed us his strategy, his evidence. Help us get ahead of this before it's too late. The mayor paused. In return, certain connections remain buried. Certain careers remain intact. Janet stared at the photo on her desk, her and Marcus at their wedding, both smiling, both believing they'd made it. I'll need time to think. Time is luxury we don't have. Make your choice. The line went dead. Janet sat perfectly still, watching her reflection in the window. Successful black woman in designer clothes, living proof the system could work if you played along. But whose system was it, really? Her computer chimed. A video link from the police department's PR team. Officer Briggs's public statement. She clicked play. Dalton Briggs sat before the camera in his dress uniform, badges gleaming. His expression was carefully arranged into something approaching contrition. "I want to address the recent incident in Piedmont Park," he began, voice steady. "While maintaining order sometimes requires difficult decisions, I regret how things appeared to the public. My record shows my dedication to this community." The camera kept rolling after the official statement. Briggs's mask slipped, a smirk playing at his lips as he loosened his collar. "How was that? Think those bleeding hearts'll buy it?" Someone off camera laughed. "Perfect, man." Real tearjerker. Janet closed the video, disgust churning in her stomach. Her phone buzzed again, a text from Marcus. "Make the right choice." She thought of Darius, his passionate speeches about justice, his promises to reshape the system. But systems didn't reshape easily. They broke people who tried. Her computer contained everything. Legal strategy, witness lists, Ray Coleman's findings. One encrypted file could change the game. Janet's fingers flew across the keyboard, accessing secure folders. The mayor's private email was already in her contacts. She hesitated one last time, cursor hovering over Send. A memory surfaced, her first case as a civil rights lawyer, defending a black teenager wrongly accused by the same police department. She'd believed in justice then, believed she could change things from the inside. Now, she was the inside, and it was changing her instead. The file attached. Her finger clicked Send before she could reconsider. The betrayal took less than 30 seconds to complete. Outside her office, Darius walked past, deep in conversation with Ray Coleman. He caught her eye, nodded respectfully, still trusting, still believing she was part of his revolution. Janet forced a smile, even as her screen confirmed delivery of the encrypted file. She'd chosen survival over justice, comfort over courage, just like she'd been doing for years. Her phone buzzed one final time. A message from the mayor. "Smart choice. Welcome to the right side of history." Janet deleted the message, straightened her designer jacket, and walked to her next meeting. Behind her practiced smile, she tried to ignore the voice whispering that there was no right side in this war, only the side that kept you safe, and the side that told the truth. The autumn sun slanted through her window, casting sharp shadows across her desk. In the distance, Atlanta's skyline rose like a wall of glass and steel, beautiful from far away. But up close, every window reflected something ugly. The encrypted file would reach its destination within hours. By tomorrow, the mayor's office would know every move Darius planned, every piece of evidence he'd gathered. The system would protect itself, just like it always did. Janet picked up her coffee cup, the porcelain cool against her palm. The liquid inside had gone cold, bitter with time and regret. The morning headline hit like a sledgehammer. Staged justice. CEO accused of paying homeless man to set up police. Darius stood in his office, watching the media circus unfold on multiple screens. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution's website displayed leaked emails, conversations that never happened, showing payments that were never made. Mr. Langston coordinated with Calvin Monroe weeks before the incident, one outlet reported. Sources claim up to $50,000 changed hands. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Reporters swarmed the Langston Industries lobby like hungry wolves. Security had to form a human barrier just to get him into the building. Janet burst into his office, clutching a tablet. "Darius, have you seen—" Every word. His voice was ice. He watched her face carefully, searching for signs of guilt, but her mask of concern was perfect. "This is serious," she said, pacing. Nike just pulled their contract. Microsoft is reviewing our partnership. The board is calling for an emergency meeting. Darius turned to the wall of windows overlooking Atlanta. The city sparkled in the morning sun, beautiful and treacherous. They're lying. The emails look real, Darius. They have bank transfers, meeting schedules. I said they're lying. His reflection showed steel in his eyes. And you know it. A knock at the door interrupted them. Myra Jenkins entered, her usual teacher's composure replaced by urgent worry. I came as soon as I saw the news. Janet's phone buzzed. The board's waiting. They want answers. Give me a minute with Ms. Jenkins, Darius said. Janet hesitated, then left, heels clicking sharply against the floor. Myra waited until the door closed. You've been played, son. Someone on the inside fed them everything they needed. I know. Darius loosened his tie. But how did they fake those emails? The timestamps, the metadata. Does it matter? They're burning you down to save themselves. Myra's voice softened. Maybe it's time to step back, live to fight another day. As if on cue, Cal pushed through the door, face twisted with worry. Dee, this has gone too far. They're painting you as some kind of puppet master, using me to start a race war. Let them paint whatever picture they want. Darius's voice was steady. The truth is still the truth. Man, look at yourself. Cal gestured at the screens, the headlines screaming accusations. Your company's bleeding money. Your reputation's in the gutter. For what? Some broken-down nobody who… Don't! Darius turned, eyes flashing. Don't you dare call yourself nobody. That's their game, making us believe we're nothing, so we'll accept anything. More phones buzzed. More headlines flashed. Twitter exploded with conspiracy theories. Conservative pundits called it race-baiting for profit. Liberal outlets wondered if they'd been duped. They're going to bury you, Cal whispered. Walk away. Please. Darius walked to his desk, opened his laptop. If they're going to bury me, I'll drag the truth out with me. His fingers flew across the keyboard, diving into server logs, access records. 20 years of tech experience had taught him one thing. Data always left footprints. What are you looking for? Myra asked. The leak had to come from inside, someone with high-level access to our secure servers. His eyes narrowed at the screen. Someone who knows exactly what we're planning. The room fell silent except for his typing. Cal watched nervously. Myra stood like a sentinel, guarding the door. Then Darius found it. The metadata signature on the leaked files. The encryption key used to transfer them. All leading back to one source. His fist crashed into the desk, sending papers flying. Janet! She's with them! The betrayal burned worse than the accusations. Janet, who'd sat in this very office planning their legal strategy, who'd known about his childhood with Cal, about the years of police harassment, about everything they were fighting for. I trusted her, he said quietly. I thought she understood. She understands just fine, Myra replied. She just chose the other side. Cal picked up a fallen newspaper, its headline now seeming darkly ironic. Langston's Crusade, Justice or Manipulation? So what now? Cal asked. They've got your lawyer, your reputation, half your company. Now, Darius straightened his tie, smoothed his jacket. Now we show them what real manipulation looks like. His phone buzzed again, the board demanding his presence. Outside, reporters still circled like vultures. The mayor's office had already released a statement condemning this attempted manipulation of public servants. The system was closing ranks, just as it always did. But this time, it had made a crucial mistake. They think money and power are the same thing, Darius said, gathering his files. They're about to learn the difference. Myra touched his arm. Be careful. Cornered animals bite hardest. Good. His smile was sharp as broken glass. I want them to bite. Every attack leaves evidence. Every lie leaves a trail. He looked at the city skyline one last time, remembering the boy he'd been, the lessons Cal had taught him about fighting back. The system thought it could bury him with fake emails and media spin. They'd forgotten what made him dangerous wasn't his money. It was his memory. Memory of every slight, every injustice, every moment the system showed its true face. The board was waiting. The vultures were circling. And Janet was about to learn that betrayal, like everything else, left a digital footprint. The police precinct loomed against the gray afternoon sky, its brick facade as cold and unwelcoming as a prison. Darius straightened his suit jacket, ignoring the throbbing in his temples from a sleepless night. News vans lined the street, cameras already rolling. "Mr. Langston," reporters shouted. "Any comment on the bribery allegations?" He strode past them, purpose in every step. The department's glass doors slid open with a hiss. Inside, the fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across faces that turned to stare. Some curious, others hostile. At the front desk, Officer Chen's eyes widened. "Sir, can I help?" "I need to speak with Chief Rourke." Darius's voice carried across the lobby. "About the missing body cam footage and doctored arrest logs." Heads turned, phones emerged to record. Behind the desk, Chen reached for his radio, but Dalton Briggs was already approaching, that familiar smirk twisting his face. "Well, if it isn't Atlanta's favorite troublemaker." Briggs planted himself in front of Darius, arms crossed. "Come to apologize for that little PR stunt. I want access to the original arrest logs." Darius matched Briggs's stance. "The real ones, not whatever sanitized version you submitted." Other officers gathered, forming a loose circle. Someone was live streaming. "Good. You got a warrant?" Briggs's smirk widened. "Or did you think flashing your platinum card would be enough? Those records are public domain." Darius took out his phone, started recording. "Unless you're admitting there's something to hide." Briggs stepped closer, invading Darius's space. His breath smelled of coffee and spite. "You think your money changes who you are to us?" "No." Darius didn't back down. "But it might change how many people watch what happens next." The tension crackled. Officers shifted nervously, aware of the growing crowd of observers. Through the glass doors, more news crews gathered. "Last chance," Darius said quietly. "Show me the logs." Briggs's hand shot out, shoving Darius hard in the chest. "That's assault on an officer!" Darius stumbled, but caught himself. "I haven't touched you." "Resisting!" Briggs lunged forward. The next moments exploded in chaos. Briggs grabbed Darius's arm, twisting it behind his back. Other officers swarmed in, their combined weight driving him to the floor. His cheek hit the cold tile, the same position they'd forced Cal into. "Stop resisting!" someone shouted, though Darius lay perfectly still. Cameras flashed, phones recorded. Someone in the crowd yelled, "He's not fighting back!" A knee pressed into his spine. Handcuffs bit into his wrists. Through it all, Darius kept his eyes open, memorizing faces, badges, details. The same tile pattern Cal had seen, the same boots pressing down, the same system showing its true face. They hauled him up roughly. His silk tie was twisted, his jacket torn. A thin line of blood trickled from his split lip where it had hit the floor. Chief Rourke appeared, looking more annoyed than concerned. "Book him." "Assault on an officer, resisting arrest, disturbing the peace." "The only disturbance is your corruption," Darius said clearly, knowing the cameras were still rolling. "How many other innocent men have you done this to?" "Get him out of my sight." Rourke waved dismissively. They marched him through the precinct's back corridors, past rows of desks where officers pretended not to stare. His shoes, Italian leather, now scuffed, squeaked against the linoleum. The booking process was deliberately slow, each step drawn out to maximize the humiliation. Fingerprints, mugshot, personal items catalogued and bagged. Rolex, the booking officer drawled. Very nice. Hope nothing happens to it in storage. Darius said nothing. Let them show their pettiness. Every snide comment, every accidental rough handling, it all proved his point. They led him to a holding cell that smelled of bleach and despair. The same cell they'd probably held Cal in. The same flickering fluorescent bulb casting shadows through the bars. "Enjoy your stay," Briggs called out as they locked the door. "Maybe now you'll learn your place." Rourke appeared later, standing outside the cell like a visiting dignitary at a zoo. "You know, Mr. Langston, all this could have been avoided. A man in your position should know better than to rock the boat." Darius sat on the metal bench, his split lip throbbing in time with his heartbeat. "A man in my position has a responsibility to fight injustice." "Injustice?" Rourke chuckled. "Look around you. This is justice. This is what happens to people who don't know their role." "My role?" Darius touched his bleeding lip. "Is this what you did to Cal? Try to teach him his role? That bum?" Rourke's face hardened. "He should have stayed invisible. Like you should have stayed in your tower with your shareholders." He turned to leave, then paused. "You've got one phone call coming. I suggest you use it to call your board. Explain why their CEO is spending the night in jail." The cell door clanged shut. Footsteps echoed away. Darius stared at the flickering bulb above, its unsteady light matching the trembling in his lip. The holding cell was silent, except for the hum of the light and the distant sound of the precinct's normal operations. Life going on as if nothing had happened. As if this was all normal. His hands clenched. Blood dripped onto his torn silk tie. "I'm not done," he whispered to the empty cell. While Darius sat in his cell, across town, Cal jerked awake on an unfamiliar couch. Sweat beaded on his forehead, his heart racing from another nightmare about concrete pressing against his face. The apartment was small but clean, walls covered with protest posters and news clippings. Morning light filtered through gauzy curtains. "You're safe," a woman's voice called from the kitchen. "Been out for almost 12 hours. Tasha Green emerged, carrying 2 steaming mugs. Her braids were pulled back in a messy bun, dark circles under her eyes suggesting she hadn't slept. She handed Cal a cup of coffee. "How?" Cal's voice was rough. "How'd I get here?" "Found you wandering near 5 Points last night." She settled into a worn armchair, laptop balanced on her knees. "After they arrested Darius, figured they'd come looking for you next." Cal's hands trembled around the mug. "Darius is in jail?" Tasha turned her laptop to show him the viral video. Darius forced to the ground, the same way they'd done to Cal. The footage had millions of views already. "Been live streaming about your case for days." She gestured to her makeshift recording setup in the corner. Ring lights, microphones, a backdrop covered in Justice for Cal posters. People are listening. They're finally seeing what these cops really do. Cal set down his coffee, shoulders hunched. Seeing ain't the same as changing. They'll bury this like they bury everything else. Not this time. Tasha opened the encrypted folder on her laptop. "Got something they can't bury." She played a recording, a young officer's shaky voice describing how Briggs and Denham regularly targeted homeless black men, planting evidence and falsifying reports. How Chief Rourke protected them, rewarded them. "That's just the start," Tasha said. "Got 3 more whistleblowers ready to talk. Plus," a knock at the door made them both freeze. Tasha grabbed her phone, ready to start recording, but relaxed when a familiar voice called out, "It's Ray. I got the files." She let in Ray Coleman, the private investigator looking as exhausted as the rest of them. He carried a heavy messenger bag, which he set carefully on Tasha's cluttered coffee table. Darius knew they'd come for him eventually, Ray explained, pulling out a sleek external hard drive. Had me gather everything weeks ago. Internal memos, deleted body cam footage, financial records showing payoffs. Cal leaned forward. You saying Darius planned this? Not getting arrested, Ray said. But he knew they'd try to silence him. Made sure the truth would get out, even if they did. Tasha connected the drive to her laptop. Documents filled the screen, hundreds of them. Evidence of years of systematic abuse, all meticulously catalogued. Look at this, she whispered, opening an email chain. Rourke ordering officers to target specific neighborhoods, telling them to clean up the streets before major events. That's where they got me, Cal said quietly. Week before the Super Bowl. Said I was bad for tourism. Ray pulled out more files, printouts of text messages between officers bragging about beatings, photos of falsified evidence, spreadsheets tracking unofficial arrests. They thought they were untouchable, Ray said. Got sloppy. Left trails. Tasha's fingers flew over her keyboard, organizing the evidence into categories. We need to release this smart. Build the story, piece by piece. People need to understand, Cal said, his voice stronger now. This ain't just about me or Darius. It's about every person they've hurt. They worked through the morning, Tasha crafting powerful social media threads while Ray verified sources. Cal recorded a statement, his quiet dignity more damning than any angry tirade. They tried to make me invisible, he said to the camera. Make me feel less than human. But I'm still here, still standing. Around noon, Tasha's phone buzzed. Another whistleblower, this time from the evidence room. More footage, more proof of tampering. It's like dominoes, Ray observed. Once the first one falls. People are scared of Rourke, Cal said. But they're more scared of staying silent now. Tasha nodded, reviewing the growing mountain of evidence on her screens. Years of injustice, carefully hidden, now exposed to light. Know what's powerful? She said. Every time they tried to shut someone up, they created another witness. Another voice ready to speak. Cal stood by the window, watching the city below. Somewhere out there, Darius sat in a cell, just like Cal had so many times before. When do we release it? He asked. We build it right, Tasha said, her eyes fierce. Make it so big, so clear, they can't spin it away. No more shadows for them to hide in. She pulled up her live stream setup, adjusted her lights. Her following had grown exponentially since Darius's arrest, hundreds of thousands waiting for updates. First, she said, we show them who you really are, Cal. Not their stereotype, not their excuse. The real you. Cal nodded slowly. Been invisible so long. Almost forgot what that felt like. Time to be seen, Ray said quietly. Time to let that light burn away all their lies. Tasha positioned her camera, checked the frame. Her voice was steel and fire when she spoke. Let's burn the truth into daylight. Dawn crept over Atlanta, painting the safe house windows in pale gold. Darius sat at the kitchen table, ice pack pressed against his swollen jaw, his usual crisp suit replaced by a simple black t-shirt. The holding cell's concrete floor had left its mark. He winced with each movement, ribs bruised from the officer's special attention. Cal paced near the window, checking the street below every few minutes. His shopping cart, rescued by Tasha's volunteers, sat in the corner, a reminder of how quickly life could strip everything away. Still can't believe they actually locked you up, Cal said, shaking his head. You, a CEO. Money doesn't change the color of my skin. Darius's voice was rough. Just means they enjoyed it more. Tasha burst through the door, laptops and cables bundled in her arms. Dark circles rimmed her eyes. She hadn't slept since Darius's arrest. Social media's exploding. Your mugshots everywhere. Good. Darius shifted the ice pack. Let them see what their proper channels really look like. Myra Jenkins arrived next, carrying bags of breakfast and coffee. She'd been coordinating online support since the beginning, her retired teachers' network spreading the story far and wide. "Half my former students are ready to march," she said, setting out coffee cups. "The other half are lawyers offering to help." They gathered around Tasha's impromptu command center, laptops, tablets, and phones covering every surface. Evidence files spread across the floor in careful piles, witness statements, leaked documents, video footage. "We've got their whole system mapped out," Tasha explained, pulling up spreadsheets. Every false arrest, every covered-up complaint. 3 years of targeting homeless black men before tourism events. "They're already trying to spin it," Myra added, scrolling through news sites. "Calling you a privileged CEO trying to stir up trouble." Darius laughed without humor. "Privileged? I grew up eating government cheese with Cal, worked 3 jobs through college, built my company from nothing." "That's what we show them," Cal said quietly. "The real story. Not just what they did to us, but why they thought they could get away with it." Tasha nodded, typing rapidly. "Langston Industries has one of the biggest private broadcasting networks in the South. How many viewers can you reach?" "Live streaming capability for about 12 million, Darius said. "More through partner channels." "Perfect." Tasha pulled up a presentation template. "We do it live. No editing, no filters. Raw truth straight to the people." They spent hours planning the broadcast. Myra coordinated with social justice groups to spread the word. Cal practiced his testimony with Ray, each word carrying the weight of decades of silence. Around noon, they did a technical rehearsal. Tasha's professional equipment merged seamlessly with Langston Industries' network. The Safe House living room transformed into a makeshift studio. "Audio level's good," Tasha called out, adjusting her controls. "Video feed is clean." Darius stood before the camera, his bruises stark under the lights. Despite his injuries, he radiated the same quiet power that had built his empire. "Test your opening," Tasha directed. Darius looked directly into the lens. His voice was low, but carried steel beneath the surface. "They took everything. Now I'll take their power." "Cut." Tasha checked the playback. "Perfect. Raw, but controlled." Cal watched from the side, remembering the scared kid who once hid from bullies. "You really ready to risk it all?" "Already lost what matters," Darius replied. "My reputation, board support, stock value, all gone. But they showed their true faces. Now everyone else will see them too." Myra's phone buzzed with updates. "Police unions calling an emergency press conference. They know something's coming." "Let them sweat," Tasha said, reviewing their evidence sequence. "Each denial just makes our proof stronger." They worked through lunch, refining their presentation. Ray arrived with more whistleblower statements, officers who'd finally found the courage to speak. "Stations in chaos," he reported. "Internal affairs showing up unannounced. Rourke's shredding files." "Too late," Tasha smiled, patting her hard drives. "We've got it all." The afternoon sun slanted through the windows as they prepared for tomorrow's broadcast. Each person knew their role. Tasha directing, Myra monitoring response, Ray verifying sources live. Cal studied his own reflection in a darkened screen. The homeless man they'd tried to erase, now about to expose their whole system. "You don't have to do this part," Darius told him quietly. "Could use a spokesperson." "Need to see my face," Cal replied. "Need to know I'm real. That we're all real." Tasha called them together for final checks. Equipment tested, backup systems ready, security protocols in place. She'd brought in trusted friends to guard the building's entrance. "Remember," she said, "we only get one shot at this. Has to be perfect." Not perfect, Darius corrected, standing painfully. Has to be true. They worked until sunset, rehearsing transitions, practicing responses to potential interruptions. Outside, the city lights began to twinkle. The same lights that had witnessed their pain would now witness their revelation. Get some rest, Tasha finally ordered. Tomorrow we make history. Darius remained at the window after the others left, watching police cars circle the block. They knew he was planning something. Let them worry, he thought. Let them feel that fear they'd used as a weapon for so long. They took everything, he whispered again, touching his bruised face. Now, I'll take their power. The evening sky darkened over Atlanta as spotlights illuminated the massive stage erected before Langston Industries headquarters. Digital screens towered above, broadcasting live feeds to the thousands gathered in the plaza below. Police barriers strained against the pressing crowd, while news helicopters circled overhead like restless birds. Darius stood in the wings, adjusting his tie. Despite his bruises, he'd chosen his sharpest suit, armor for battle. Cal waited beside him, wearing clean clothes Tasha had brought, his gray hair neatly trimmed. His hands trembled slightly. "You okay?" Darius asked softly. "Been invisible so long," Cal whispered. "Don't know how to be seen anymore." Darius squeezed his shoulder. "Just be yourself. That's what they fear most." Tasha's voice crackled through their earpieces. "Live in 3 minutes. 12 million viewers already logged in. Twitter's crashing." Security teams swept the perimeter as more people flooded the streets. Signs bobbed above the crowd. Justice for Cal. End police brutality. Black Lives Matter. Church groups stood alongside activists, grandmothers beside college students. 60 seconds, Tasha called. From her control room, she could see police units gathering at the edges of the crowd. They're mobilizing, but keeping their distance. Of course they are, Darius muttered. They want to watch their own execution. The massive screens flickered to life. A hush fell over the crowd as Darius and Cal walked onto the stage, their steps echoing through the speakers. Camera flashes exploded like lightning. "Good evening," Darius began, his voice steady and clear. "My name is Darius Langston. 2 weeks ago, I watched police officers assault my childhood friend Calvin Monroe for the crime of being homeless while black. When I demanded justice, they assaulted me too." He touched his bruised jaw. "But tonight isn't about me. It's about decades of systematic abuse hidden behind badges and bureaucracy. Tonight, we show you what they never wanted you to see." The screens shifted to body cam footage. Not the malfunctioning official versions, but crystal-clear recordings saved by officers with consciences. Scene after scene played out. Briggs and others targeting homeless black men, planting evidence, falsifying reports. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some people cried. Others shouted in anger. Cal stepped forward, his voice stronger than he'd expected. "That was me last month, and the month before. Always the same officers, always the same lies." The footage shifted to internal police emails. Tasha's team highlighted key phrases. "Clean up the tourist zones," "usual suspects," "keep it off the books." Chief Rourke's name appeared repeatedly, directing operations, approving cover-ups. "Notice the pattern," Darius continued. "Every major convention, every tourist event, they'd sweep through, arresting black men like Cal. No charges filed, no records kept. Just make them disappear until the visitors leave." More documents filled the screens. Falsified arrest reports, deleted complaints, buried internal affairs investigations. The crowd's anger grew palpable, a living thing that breathed and surged. Then came the bombshell. "Earlier today," Darius announced, "Officer Mark Denham came forward. This is his unedited body cam footage from the morning after Cal's arrest. The video showed Denham entering Chief Rourke's office. Rourke sat behind his desk, smirking as he ordered the footage deleted. The reports altered. "Handle it like always," Rourke's voice rang clear. "These animals need to learn their place, and if that tech CEO keeps pushing, we'll remind him where he came from too." The crowd erupted in outrage. But before they could react further, movement rippled through the plaza. Dark suits appeared at the edges, earpieces glinting. "Federal agents," Tasha's voice crackled in their ears. "FBI and Justice Department." They moved with precise coordination, converging on the police station across the street. The crowd parted, phones recording everything. Live news feeds caught Chief Rourke being led out in handcuffs, his face ashen. Briggs followed, still trying to look tough even as steel circled his wrists. The plaza exploded in cheers. People hugged strangers, crying and laughing. Some dropped to their knees in prayer. Others chanted, "Justice! Justice!" Cal stared at the scene, tears streaming down his weathered face. "Never thought I'd see this day." "Look at me," Darius said, turning to face his old friend under the bright lights. "You're not invisible anymore." "None of us are." The crowd's roar grew deafening as more officers were led out. Janet Reese was escorted from her law office. The mayor's chief of staff emerged from City Hall with agents beside her. Tasha's voice came through their earpieces again. "Social media's exploding. Every major network's picking it up. Police departments across the country are trending." On stage, Cal stepped forward one last time. His voice shook, but carried clearly through the speakers. "I used to tell young Darius, don't let them make you small. Tonight, we stand tall. Tonight, we are seen." The screens showed Rourke and Briggs being placed in federal vehicles, their faces illuminated by camera flashes. The same harsh lights they'd used to blind and intimidate now exposed them to the world. The marble halls of Atlanta's federal courthouse echoed with footsteps as people filed into the packed courtroom. 3 weeks had passed since the broadcast that shook the city. Morning light filtered through tall windows, casting long shadows across worn wooden benches. Dalton Briggs sat at the defendant's table, his uniform replaced by an ill-fitting gray suit. His usual swagger had deflated, leaving behind a smaller man who kept glancing nervously at the jury box. His attorney whispered something in his ear, but Briggs just stared straight ahead. Cal and Darius sat in the front row behind the prosecution. Cal wore a new navy blazer, his silver hair neatly combed. The dignity he'd always carried now matched his appearance. Beside him, Darius remained stone-faced, watching Briggs like a hawk. "All rise," the bailiff called, as Judge Martinez entered. The rustling of bodies filled the air as everyone stood. "In the matter of the United States versus Dalton Richard Briggs," the judge began, her voice sharp and clear. "The prosecution may proceed with their evidence." The prosecutor, a young black woman named Andrea Collins, approached the podium. "Your Honor, the government will now present video evidence of the defendant's pattern of conduct." The courtroom lights dimmed. Screens flickered to life, showing the familiar scene in Piedmont Park. But this time, it wasn't just Myra's cell phone footage. Multiple angles played simultaneously. Security cameras, bystander videos, even partial body cam footage recovered from damaged files. Cal's quiet humming as he fed pigeons. Briggs's aggressive approach. The shopping cart crashing over. In the present, Cal closed his eyes, but Darius gripped his arm gently. "Look at him," Darius whispered. "He has to face what he did." The videos continued, Briggs's knee driving into Cal's back. The racial slurs captured clearly on multiple recordings. Blood seeping into concrete. "Notice the defendant's expression," Collins directed the jury. The footage zoomed in on Briggs's face. The smirk, the casual cruelty, the absolute certainty of his power. More videos played, years of similar incidents, homeless men targeted, beaten, their belongings destroyed. The same smirk, the same certainty. Briggs shifted uncomfortably in his chair as his voice echoed from the speakers. Should have stayed invisible. The jury members' faces hardened. The prosecution presented internal emails, text messages between officers, recorded phone calls from holding cells. A portrait emerged of systematic abuse, of power wielded like a weapon against the powerless. The defendant didn't just abuse his authority, Collins argued. He reveled in it. He celebrated it. He recorded his crimes believing he was untouchable. During a brief recess, Cal stood in the hallway, breathing deeply. Darius brought him water. "You doing okay?" Darius asked. "Yeah," Cal nodded. "Just never thought I'd see him looking so small." Back in session, Briggs's attorney attempted to paint him as a dedicated officer in a difficult job. But the evidence was overwhelming. Every defense crumbled against the weight of video after video, witness after witness. Finally, after hours of testimony, the judge called for closing arguments. Collins stood one last time. Officer Briggs betrayed his oath, his badge, and his community. He didn't protect and serve. He terrorized and abused. The evidence shows a man drunk on power, who believed his authority made him untouchable. Today, we prove him wrong. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. When they returned, the forewoman's voice rang clear. On the charge of aggravated assault under color of law, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of civil rights violations, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of official misconduct. The list continued. Guilty on all counts. Judge Martinez's gaze pierced Briggs as she delivered the sentence. "Mr. Briggs, you betrayed everything your badge represented. You used your power to terrorize the vulnerable. You showed no mercy, no humanity, and no remorse. I sentence you to 15 years in federal prison." The smirk finally vanished completely from Briggs's face as officers, former colleagues, approached with handcuffs. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed the steps. Headlines flashed on phones. Mayor Shaw announces resignation. Attorney Janet Reese faces disbarment hearing. Police reform bill passes city council. Cal stood in the sunshine, watching Briggs being led to a prisoner transport van. The same walk of shame he'd forced on so many others. Darius stood beside him, both men silent as they witnessed justice unfold. "You know what I keep thinking about?" Cal said quietly. "That day in the park, feeding those pigeons. Such a simple thing. Just existing in peace." Darius nodded. "You'll have that again." "We all will." They watched the van drive away, carrying Briggs to the first day of his 15 years. No sirens, no lights, just another prisoner in the system he'd abused. "Justice isn't revenge," Darius said, patting Cal's shoulder. "It's remembering. Remembering who we are, what we deserve, and what happens when good people stand up." Cal smiled faintly, the lines around his eyes softening. The morning sun warmed his face as more headlines scrolled. Federal investigation expands to 3 more precincts. Police union leadership resigns en masse. City Council approves homeless advocacy program. A gentle breeze stirred the trees lining the courthouse steps. The same trees that had witnessed countless injustices now watched as the tide finally turned. Reporters continued shouting questions. Cameras flashed. But Cal and Darius stood quietly in the moment, remembering. As Cal and Darius descended the courthouse steps, a gentle breeze carried fallen leaves across their path. Police sirens wailed in the distance, a sound that once meant terror for Cal, but now felt different somehow. Tasha Green stood at the bottom of the steps, live streaming for her followers. History was made today, she announced into her phone. Officer Dalton Briggs, who terrorized our community for years, will serve 15 years in federal prison. The courthouse plaza buzzed with activity. News vans lined the street, their satellite dishes reaching toward the sky like metal trees. Reporters clustered in groups, speaking rapid fire into cameras about the historic verdict. "Mr. Langston," they called out. "Mr. Monroe, a statement, please." Cal paused, his hand gripping the stone railing. The same hands that had been pressed into concrete that day in the park now steadied him as he faced the crowd. The memory of Briggs's knee and his back flashed through his mind, contrasting sharply with the image of Briggs being led away in handcuffs. "You want to say something?" Darius asked quietly. Cal straightened his new blazer, a gift from Darius that still felt strange against his shoulders. "Maybe it's time." Myra Jenkins pushed through the crowd, her phone raised just like that first day in the park. But now she smiled, nodding encouragement. Other familiar faces appeared. Shelter workers who'd helped Cal over the years, community members who'd testified, even Officer Denham, who'd turned state's evidence against his former partner. Cal stepped forward, and the microphones tilted toward him like metal flowers seeking sunlight. His voice, once silenced by fear, rang clear across the plaza. "I was invisible," he began. "That's what they wanted. Invisible when I needed help. Invisible when I asked for justice. Invisible when they put their boots on my neck." The crowd fell silent, hanging on every word. Even the seasoned reporters lowered their notepads, simply listening. "But somebody saw me," Cal continued, glancing at Darius. "Somebody remembered when I was more than just a man on the street. And that's what justice looks like. Being seen, being heard, being human." Inside the courthouse, Briggs was being processed for transfer. Through the high windows, they could see him shuffling in chains, the same way he'd made countless others shuffle before him. His arrogant smirk had crumbled into a mask of disbelief. A news helicopter circled overhead, its rotors chopping the air as it captured the historic moment. On the courthouse screens, coverage switched between Briggs's sentencing and Mayor Shaw's resignation speech across town. The mayor's carefully crafted image of progressive leadership had shattered under the weight of exposed corruption. Across the city, Janet Reese faced the Bar Association's Ethics Committee, her law license and reputation in tatters. The same system she'd tried to manipulate had turned against her, proving that justice, while slow, was relentless. "What's next for you, Mr. Monroe?" a young reporter asked. Cal touched the small Bible in his pocket, not the one Briggs had destroyed, but a new one Darius had given him, inscribed with words of hope. "Next is remembering who I am, who we all are." The autumn sun cast long shadows across the plaza as more people gathered. Community activists handed out flyers about new police oversight committees. Homeless advocacy groups discussed programs being funded with money from police budget reforms. Darius stepped forward, his presence commanding yet gentle. The same authority he'd wielded in corporate boardrooms had transformed into something more meaningful, a power used to lift others rather than dominate them. "Justice happened here today," Darius addressed the crowd, "but our work isn't done. Every Cal Monroe deserves to be seen. Every voice deserves to be heard." Through the courthouse windows, they watched Briggs disappear into the prisoner transport van. The same vehicle type he'd used to carry away countless victims now carried him to face his own consequences. The wheels of justice had turned full circle. Tasha's livestream counter ticked past 1 million viewers. The story had captured the nation's attention, not just for its drama, but for its truth. Every person who'd ever felt powerless saw themselves in Cal's victory. Officer Denham approached cautiously, his badge gone but his conscience intact. "I'm sorry it took me so long to speak up," he said to Cal. Cal studied him for a moment. But you did speak up. That's what matters. The autumn wind picked up, scattering more leaves across the courthouse steps. Cal remembered feeding pigeons in the park. Such a simple act of existing that had triggered Briggs's rage. Now he stood tall, visible, undeniable. Darius placed a hand on his shoulder, solid and reassuring. "Justice isn't revenge," he said quietly. "It's remembering." Cal nodded, feeling the weight of those words. Remembering who he was before the streets. Remembering his dignity when others tried to strip it away. Remembering that justice, like dawn, always breaks through eventually. The crowd began to disperse, but the impact of the day's events lingered in the air like autumn smoke. Television screens across the city flickered with images of Briggs's downfall, juxtaposed with his brutal attack in the park. The contrast told its own story. Power corrupted, justice served, humanity restored. I hope you enjoyed that story. Please share it with your friends and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. In the meantime, I have handpicked 2 stories for you that I think you will enjoy. Have a great day.